Transits of Neptune and Neptune in the houses of the solar return or lunar return. From Ciro Discepolo's book, The Planetary Symbols. Neptune transiting the fifth house, or Neptune in the fifth house of the solar or lunar return. These could be very fruitful years, but the following also applies to the period intercepted by this position in a SR or RL for artistic production for musicians, screenwriters, directors, and many similar professions. But they could also be difficult years for our children, either objectively or subjectively. For example, our child could hang out with bad people, such as drug addicts, or he or she could have real problems with drug addiction, depression, anxiety, fear, or negative states due to taking psychotropic drugs, smoking, excessive coffee, alcohol, etc. Furthermore, our children, but they could also be those in our class if we're teachers, could be in danger at sea. So we need to be careful not to run such risks during these years, if the horoscope highlights them. In other cases, problems could stem from an unhealthy passion for gambling. In these cases, fears could be linked to large financial losses, and we should also find references in the second or eighth house. Last but not least, we could also have serious problems related to a love affair. Our partner is cheating on us, or wants to leave us, or we're just subjectively convinced that this is about to happen. The right move could be to create an imaginary relationship with a real partner, but perhaps one with a Neptunian connection. By playing at saying and not saying, making proposals, making the move only to immediately take a step back, we could continue like this for many years in a Neptunian atmosphere without suffering major trauma in this specific area of our existence. Transiting Neptune in the sixth house, or Neptune in the sixth house of solar or lunar return. The ghosts that lurk in our hearts often migrate to our minds, or to the most unimaginable organs of our bodies, making us believe we have cancer, serious liver disease, or other illnesses that have no right of residence, much less citizenship, within us, and that are solely related to the transit of the Lord of Pisces in our sixth house. Those who, already at birth, are mildly hypochondriac will accentuate their worries and be inclined to worry excessively about their health, both physical and mental. Given that the transit is quite long, these phobias could span many years of our lives. These will be years in which we will frequent or tend to frequent doctors and specialists in every branch of medicine extensively. We will fill our medicine cabinets with medicines and collect medical test after medical test. The best course of action, in the one nail drives out another logic, would be to actually identify the presence of a minor illness and devote ourselves wholeheartedly to it. If, for example, we work tirelessly to address gastroduodenitis, we'll be able to distract ourselves from other thoughts of illness and death. However, as with all Neptune transits, it would be helpful to seek help with antidepressants and especially homeopathic medications. In more serious cases, we should consult a neurologist. Our apprehensive phobias could also concern an employee or what they might do to us if, for example, they wanted to sue us. Unfortunately, with regard to this last point, there's nothing that can be done, as any written declarations from them waiving past and unpaid emoluments would be worthless before a labor magistrate. Transiting Neptune in the seventh house or Neptune in the seventh house of a solar or lunar return. During these years, but what follows also applies to the period intercepted by this position in a SR or RL, it's highly likely that our partner will suffer from phobias, persecutory delusions, neurotic behaviors, and the like. We must help him with all the love we have because he would do the same to us. Or so it should be, at least in theory. Let's support him psychologically, but above all, let's take him to the doctor often, preferably a homeopathic one, and help him pay for supportive psychotherapy. In recent years, I've become convinced that this is preferable to an orthodox in-depth analysis. You can go even once every 2 weeks, and above all, the therapist talks, gives advice, takes the field, and supports the patient. The help, almost always prescribed by the doctor, will also be pharmacological and may be based on melatonin. In any case, we must commit to being good nurses for our partner. On another level, it could also happen that our neuroses or anxieties lead us to imagine that our spouse, for example, is plotting to leave us and take up with another woman. In this case, obviously, we will be the ones who need a psychotherapist to help us. Of course, any situation of betrayal, whether suffered or suffered by others, could also be real and not just imagined. Finally, it could involve presumed or real trouble with the law, with justice, and this can be neutralized with a good lawyer and an equally good targeted solar revolution. Or always following the principle of one nail drives out another, we could invent a small personal war with someone to keep us away from a presumed larger war. Transiting Neptune in the 8th house, or Neptune in the 8th house of solar or lunar return, the death of a family member could be devastating, but this could be achieved simply by thinking about the probable demise of a relative or loved one, rather than by actually realizing such a tragic event. There's also the possibility that the life of a partner, for example, is in danger following a heart attack. But more often than not, this transit concerns entirely different events and refers instead to financial fears. The individual feels threatened by having incurred excessive debt, or by having to face an excessive expense in the near future, whether for a house, a car, or something else. The best advice I can give in these circumstances several months or even years in advance is to apply for a loan from a bank or credit institution and then repay such a debt with as many years of convenience as possible. If our fears relate to our own death, it means we are particularly distressed and need the help of a psychologist or neurologist.